Yes, yes, it actually is good, phosphatidylserine. Yes, it is for the brain. So I'd agree with her on that. It also has, in high doses, it can actually silence a number of genes that can turn off. This is neurological genes, but phosphatidylserine you don't really need to supplement. And the thing is, cortisol, for sleeping, you can actually bring it down much faster and better physiologically with taurine. So eating more meat, you get more taurine. It will regulate and bring down cortisol levels. Phosphatidylserine does something similar. Yes, it does. And it could be used for that purpose. Give it a try. It may work. It doesn't work for everyone. Let me put it that way. But for some people, and it may be genetic, the reason for why it works for some people and it doesn't work for other people. So, but when it comes to taurine, on the other hand, because it's a regulator, it basically will dampen down. It doesn't actually turn off cortisol. It brings it down to the normal physiological range. So then it allows in the evening, because cortisol goes through cycles. In the morning, it'll go up, then it will come down to about 11 o'clock. It'll be at the lowest. And then from there, it'll rise again up slightly in the mid-afternoon and come down in the early evening. That's the normal cycle of cortisol, and it's well regulated by genetics. What taurine does, it actually brings it back to that regular cycle. So it doesn't do any other thing magical and all that. Now, obviously, if you take blue light in, you may have regulated the cortisol level, but you still can have lower melatonin because it's not the cortisol that's suppressing it, but the blue light that is actually causing that effect, which does stimulate slightly cortisol as well, blue light. So in a sense, yes, it is related, but it's more the blue light that's actually the driver, the causal factor, not the cortisol, in a sense. But phosphatidylserine does help with sleep and a lot of neurological diseases. But if you're eating enough protein so you're getting enough serine and phospholipids, you will produce enough phosphatidylserine within yourself. I only recommend it primarily as a supplement for people that have got certain brain disorders and stuff like that, issues with their brain. And then I put them on very high doses for a couple of months in order to silence the genes, and then tell them stay strict carnivore from now on, to silence those genes. That's the only time I do it, And that's what the research showed out of Tel Aviv University, where they actually, were able to switch off epigenetically those genes completely. Nothing else does it. So phosphatidylserine does it in that regard. If you're eating eggs and stuff like that, you will get a lot of phospholipids and serine plus from the meats. So you should be covered quite easily. But there are certain cases. I know she does deal with extreme cases. And I usually do recommend people go to Mary Rudder for extreme, because I don't do consultancy. I don't have the case, but I do have a lot of respect for some of her research stuff. She does it low. She does it more. She doesn't do a carnivore diet. She does sort of carnivore-ish, but she does sort of more of a low carb, a ketogenic type more. So she does have small amounts of plants in her diet. So I don't really recommend, but she'll deal with carnivores as well. I do send carnivores to her in terms of consultancy, because she does extreme certain cases. So she's pretty good at that sort of regards, and she does know a lot of this sort of stuff. So I've had conversations with her, and I brought up things, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I was aware of that," and I'm going, "Yeah." Or she talks, so she's well read. Let's put it that way. She's a cluey woman, and a nutritional researcher that goes around the world looking at tribal populations. And so she is nuanced in that regard. Not many people know about phosphatidylserine. Very few. She does. I'm aware. My awareness is from the Israeli research. She wasn't aware of that, and I sort of brought her up to date about it. So she was aware of the phosphatidylserine from sleep and other factors and other neurological issues, where I was sort of looking at more genetics and looking at how it affects genetics and stuff like that, and transcription factors, and turning on and methylating, the sort of our genome and turning on and turning off things. So that was really my sort of focus, because I was dealing with some people that had some neurological. That's where I looked into the research of turning off genes, which was important in that regard. And I think this is where, people that have got schizophrenia, people that have got bipolar, like Amber Hearn, I think by including these animal foods, they tend to basically get the phospholipids, they get the serine, and it really silences those genes that are affecting them, that are driven by sugar, reactivates them. That's why when you've got those issues, you've got to be very clean, believe me, otherwise you're back on the drugs and the kibble. That's not a good place to be.